Good people. At Hyte, here we have the new case, the Y50. It's their most affordable enclosure yet at $99. They've gone through actually quite a few changes to hit that price point that I'm gonna go over today, which is actually quite fascinating. But let's just begin. Hyte is one of the brands that does color very well, both in terms of consistency throughout the materials, the metals, the plastics, all the rubbers, all the things that just look cohesive enough and without any like weird color casting or imperfections. The Y50 at $99 is going to be available in 5 colors. They actually scrapped 3 colors because those, like the orange, some of the blue ones, and something else, was not very popular on the previous model. So now we only have 5. And when I say only 5, I mean that's 5 colors. Like the pink and the purples are very popular among the feminine audience. We also have the white and the black, which is standard, and we also have the red one. So the red is a dual tone, black and red, going after that traditional gamer aesthetic. But the red one, the only unique part about that is the red one is the only glossy paint material, which feels actually really smooth to the touch instead of being like matte and kind of soft on the other material. Now the Y50 size-wise is the same as the Y70, but they've gone through some interior and exterior versions to both match the price point and still deliver that unique dual chamber aesthetic with a triple glass. You know, the front glass is angled. They now have at the bottom only a dual 120mm fan installation instead of 3 like before, just because of the whole step design, where here in front of the I/O you can, like, say, put some figurines, Lego, other things on display, while the floor beside our side installation is more recessed to the bottom to allow for wider and thicker radiators and fans. And they've extended that portion towards the front of the chassis so that you don't have incompatibilities with like a slightly thicker radiator. And of course you have that height mobility there too. On the Y50, horizontal GPU installation is the way to go. They've removed the vertical PCIe slots, so horizontal installation only with our slots that are louver style, good for airflow, and they're the stamped kind, so they're actually quite strong without removing material. Our top ventilation pattern follows the stamping that we saw on the X50, so they learned a lot through that in terms of like this being a structural piece, also a design piece, and also good for airflow. Every single color also has color matched rubber grommets, which is on the expensive side, but they didn't want to compromise on their design ID and what makes Hyte so interesting in the case space, and what makes the Y series so interesting on the interior as well. For the $99 price point, you have 4 fans included. 1 reverse fan on the side and 1 rear exhaust fan, all 120mm. The only thing is that on all color models, they're going to be white just to hit that $99 price point. If they were to color code all this stuff, then we're ballooning into that price territory that is going to not be budget oriented, but at least for the white one, the fan is white, and on the black one, the fan is black as well. They've added this scoop underneath the motherboard tray, so when you're passing cables right underneath, they're not going to be eaten by the bottom chamber, and now it just kind of fold out, and it's much easier to route everything here. Top ventilation will support up to a 360, and they've done some good job with stamping out the material, so it's not super soft, and I can actually pick up the entire case like that. It is not a removable bracket, of course, to save on the price, but that's totally fine, and it's not the dual stage like we had on the Y70. So that's one of the reasons why they did the Y70 dual stage, to showcase the fans. You can see the glass comes all the way to the top, revealing any fans and radiators that are going to be visible. Here's the other example with the white model here. If you have any RGB fans, that's not going to be covered up by our glass panel here. Our side panel has a similar stamping like we see at the top for design consistency, and there is no dedicated dust filter. One, to save on cost, and also this type of metal mesh is good enough to capture some of the dust, so you don't necessarily need anything extra. And on the interior here, we have a few things. Number one is that they've done double folding on some of these corners, so you're not accidentally cutting yourself open, and that's a nice thing to have on $99 case, although you shouldn't be expecting to cut yourself on a $99 case in the first place. But the hard drive cage has been simplified from those individual caddies into one structure, so that you can still house all your storage, but now just 2 screws, and just really simplified stamping process here for reducing the cost. The I/O has been refined. You can see all the ports are now horizontal instead of vertical like on the original Y70, just because each port has to use 2 screws if they're vertical and only a single one for horizontal. And so that's the Y50, a $99 enclosure with 5 available colors. No more Gen 4 or Gen 5 riser cables, because that with the current economy and the current tariff situation, the freight is just adding way too much to the cost, and the $99 price would not have been possible otherwise. I think for a dual chamber enclosure in the 5 color options, where nobody is doing color right now, Hyte is definitely on a winning streak, being also affordable without losing the true sort of like identity behind the brand. And yeah, I think the Y50 is going to be quite popular. And just to show you how serious they are about color matching all their components, here we have this massive selection of color match cables. And this is one of those things where you kind of have to appreciate, because you can't just make like 10 of these. You have to put a giant order in order to satisfy the manufacturing. And so if we look at the purple and the pink cases right behind me, where they're using their, let's take the pink one, for example, they are using their pink fans, their pink cables, the pink enclosure, and all that as a standalone case, as a color piece, looks fantastic. Very consistent, both on the purple ones as well, where the case is almost like hugging all your components because of the color match cables and the fans, and all the fans at the bottom, for example, that are almost hidden. No other brand right now is doing something even close to what Hyte is doing with color. Also, check this out, Eber. This is the X20. This used to be a prototype, and this is the only prototype they designed. This is the first time I'm seeing the orange one. It just wasn't moving in terms of color, but the X20 as a prototype in the ITX space just shows that Hyte is willing to experiment with something like this in the idea stage, but this never actually went into full mass production just because it just wouldn't make sense financially. They also have this interesting air cooler prototype, with a single fan with dual towers, but so this is also never went into production because the price point would not make sense in the current market, especially when the competition exists. But just to show you what they're kind of playing around with here, this is going to match. I mean, look at this. This would match so well in the configuration that we're seeing here with this purple. And here we have the Z50, Eber. Check this out. This is the Z50. This is also one of those, maybe we might do something. The Z90 from CES that they showcased was quite popular. This is the slightly smaller variation based on the X50 design and the X50 case, with more fans at the front and still this wraparound weird little rubber things. On display, they also have their next generation cooling platform. Right now, they're working through different vendors trying to figure out what type of pumps to use, but in terms of design, I really like what we're seeing here from Computex in terms of transparent housing on the fans, on the pump, just to reveal a little bit more of the, not just the RGB, but the stuff, something that's underneath there, potentially exposed PCBs. And we also have their really thick FR12 fans. This is a really interesting design in terms of the loop around for the fans, really thick structure with the transparent LEDs all around. They're all daisy chainable with a massive splitter cable available for separate routing for your 4-pin and your 5-volt RGB connector. For example, if you want to use their new PWM Smart Hub, you can do so. It is magnetic, can be installed behind the case with individual 4 channels for lighting and fan RPM. And they're also trying to reinvent the RGB software in a way, but with their Nexus 3.0. Right now, the Nexus 2.0 is quite good, but with the Nexus 3.0, it's going to be a web utility software. It's going to be connected, to your motherboard, so you can control lighting, RGB, fan speed, monitor brightness, even monitor brightness of, let's say, your Y50. So the integration is going to be quite powerful, both for Mac, Linux, and Windows at the same time. You can pull up the application on your phone and control, for example, lighting, and even SDKs built in for smart home applications. And I think that's a really smart way forward, especially for something that is like this universal hub control that allows us to move away from things like Armoury Crate software and Razer Synapse. And there are some good strides that are happening within those ecosystems, but I feel like what Hyte is doing here with Nexus 3, especially with the web utility that's only a 25 megabyte application, that is a local server, so you're not pulling data and sharing all this information with third parties, for example, but now it's just all going to be in your hands, that's accessible both on the Mac and your phone, Windows. So yeah, that's Hyte, guys. Very exciting stuff. I'm Dmitry. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.